Call this council meeting to order. And this evening we have regrets from Councillor Beauregard. He's away on holidays. And Regional Councillor Davies will not be attending this evening. At this time, if I can call on the Deputy Clerk for our national anthem, and rise if you can.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
And at this time, I'll call on Councillor Aquilina for our land acknowledgement.
Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandarack and the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no proclamations. We do have, there is one proclamation. Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, September 2024, and the flag raising, which will take place August 30th, 2024. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Hoyle move that. Are there any questions? All in favor? That's carried. If I could have Councillors Bruno and Elliott move the agenda as adopted, and the adoptions are the Grant Allocation Committee minutes. There was a procedural correction made to those minutes to reflect Councillor Hoyle's conflict regarding the WAVE funding, and under Report 2024-153 and the corresponding bylaw, the Environmental Protection Zone was incorrectly noted on the Schedule A map. The map's been updated to remove the Environmental Protection Zone. And there are 2 delegations this evening for our meeting. Any questions on the agenda changes? Or changes? All in favor? That's carried. And we have disclosures. I have Councillor Hoyle, item 8.3, the recommendation report for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment for VL and 563 Cloud Street East 2024-153, and his reason is that he lives in that development area. And also on the aforementioned 19.1, which is the Grant Allocation Committee minutes of the July 29th, 2024. And Councillor Hoyer recused himself from any discussion, debate, decision, and vote regarding the application from the WAVE as he serves on that board. Okay, any further disclosures? Seeing none. We have 2 sets of minutes, Council. The regular meeting of Council, July 23rd, 2024. The public meeting minutes of August 6th, 2024. And then minutes from the joint special council meeting, which was a closed session from August 12th, 2024. If I could have Councillors Aquilina and Bagu move those minutes. Any questions on any of those? All in favor? That's carried. The following staff reports are brought forward. I have items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.5, and 8.6. Any further items? So the remaining items under section 8 and the correspondence items under section 9. If I could have Councillors Danch and Hoyle move the remainder. All in favor? That's carried. No presentations, no delegations. We're on to the Mayor's report. So the opening ceremonies of the Paralympic Games in Paris are tomorrow. Among the 4,400 athletes from 180 countries competing in 22 sports will be Emma Van Dyke of Port Colborne. And it'll be a great experience for the 21-year-old resident of Port Colborne. Emma started swimming at a young age as a form of physio. Now she trains twice a day at Brock University with Coach David Ling. In May at the Paralympic time trials, she broke the Canadian record in the 100-meter backstroke. And in fact, she broke the Canadian record for the 100-meter backstroke 3 times within the last 2 years. Emma is also a rower. She and her twin sister won gold in junior doubles at the Ontario Championships. And here's another fun fact about Emma. Her summer job at Parks Canada, Fort George and Niagara Lake, was as an 1812 reenactor. And I was able to meet Emma with our communications staff about a month ago and gave her our city's best wishes and a good package to take with her to Paris. And she said she's ready and she's excited. Well, Emma, we're excited for you. With our 23,000 followers on Instagram, your hometown and all of Niagara will be cheering you in the 100-meter backstroke at the Paralympic Games. CAO Scott Louie and I will be part of the Niagara region delegation invited to Japan by Asai Kasei. We'll travel for a week in October with representatives from the Niagara region, economic development, Brock University and Niagara College. We'll meet with AK leadership and staff who will show us their factories and facilities. Our Port Colborne team has been invited to the Canadian Embassy to meet with embassy staff. We've been invited to meet with the leadership of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Tokyo. We have meetings already set up with several Japanese companies who are interested in our city and our province, including some green energy innovators and the Association of Japanese Ship Owners. Based on current world affairs, we're glad to see Japanese companies, not just from the automotive industry, looking to invest in our region, our province, and our country. It is the kind of incredible work we accomplish when we work together at all levels of government, municipal, regional, provincial, and federal. We continue to get calls and emails at City Hall from people outraged by drivers who speed. We ask that you please slow down. The speed limit just about everywhere in our city is 50 kilometers an hour, and if it's not posted at 50, it's 40. When you see those bright yellow school zone signs, that means slow down, do not speed up, do not pass, slow down. Next week, children will be back to school from kindergarten to grade 12. Police will be blitzing school areas, so if you speed, you'll be ticketed, believe me. And that's it for that. You will get a ticket. Please be mindful of all our children and all our neighbors whenever you get behind the wheel, and we ask you that you enjoy your Labor Day weekend, everyone, and let's be safe out there. That's my report this evening. Any questions? Okay. Any regional councillor questions I can take to the region? Nothing? Okay. On to staff remarks. Madam Clerk, anything from the Clerk's Department?
Nothing here, Your Worship.
Mr. CAO.
Sure, through your worship, just 2 items. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce to council and the mayor as well as senior staff, if they haven't met her yet, our new deputy clerk who started on Monday, Jessica Beaupre. So she's here today. She's sitting here running the agenda on the screens and the Zoom meeting and all the fun things that go with it and taking minutes. But Jessica is a welcome addition to our team. The second thing is that I had a chance to speak with legal yesterday and today about the, I know council's waiting for the lodging bylaw to come back to council. It was the subject of a meeting earlier this year. There were some comments received both during the meeting and separately from the meeting by email. And legal's taking a chance to review those comments, and they hope, they've been pretty busy with other work from this city and other clients, but they said that they do hope to have that back to us by the end of September. So hopefully that bylaw can be before council at one of the 2 council meetings in October. And I think that's everything I have.
Thank you. Chief.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Shapowski. Nothing, Mr. Bowles. Mr. Long?
Mr. Mayor, I was happy to be part of the city's delegation to the AMO conference last week in Ottawa, and perhaps Councillor Elliott may have some updates, as well as CAO Louis, but happy to be part of that delegation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. No other staff here. Planning, anything to update planning? Nothing, okay. All right, Councillor Bodnar, you want to lead off on our councillor remarks?
Yeah, all good, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hoyle?
Everything that I've needed is taken care of, so thanks.
Councillor Danch?
Kind of boring like the rest of them. I had a couple issues, but they've all been looked after. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just like Director Long said, we did have the opportunity to attend the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario, which was held in Ottawa this year. And Gary scheduled us so many meetings that we seem to be in meetings all day, every day. So it was very worthwhile to just start off. Every meeting that we attended, all of the ministers or the parliamentary assistants or the deputy ministers all know where Port Colborne is now. So we are on the map. Everybody can point to us and know what's going on down here. And to a person, they had all heard about the development that's going on, and we're excited for Port Colborne as a city, the region as the municipality, but also Niagara as a whole. They see a lot of business coming down this way in the not too distant future. So that was great to hear. So I'll just go through a list of who we saw. Minister Calandra, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Deputy Minister Deborah Richardson from Health, Parliamentary Assistant Sandhu from Infrastructure. We did have a meeting from the Ontario Medical Association that asked us to come and join them with regards to the listing of patients with doctors. We had a great time with Minister Stan Cho of Tourism and Culture, and he was very, very supportive of what we're doing down here. Both Gary and Scott put forth a good description of what we're doing with the South Coast Tourist Association and different projects that we had underway. So he was very interested in that, knew some of the things that we were doing, looks forward to coming down here. I guess one of the last ones we had was with Minister Fedeli, who is Economic Development. And he did state that he had plans to visit Port Colborne 3 times in the next month and a half, which is very interesting to know that he's going to drop by. He had plans to go to another municipality in Niagara and decided that he'll swing by on the way to check out the development. So with regards to the Ontario Medical Association, they did present us with council resolution that I will bring back. I will give it to the clerk so she can prepare for our next meeting. But their goal is to see every person registered with a doctor going forward. So I know that the mayor is working hard on something in the background with his committee, and it was great to have the conversation with them. We explained kind of what we were doing going forward. They were excited about that. The Deputy Minister of Health, when we explained to her what we were doing, she was very impressed on the tack that we're taking, and was taking notes quite quickly to go back to the minister and let her know what was going on at Port Colborne. So outside of all those meetings, that was about it. But it was good to know that Niagara as a whole, because not only what's good for Port Colborne is good for Niagara, and they have a big circles around Niagara for things to come. So great convention that we went to.
Thank you, Counselor, and I'm going to ask a question in a second here, but we appreciate you representing council and the city at AMO. It's important that we do attend our municipal conferences. We did, a number of us attended Federation of Canadian Municipalities earlier in the summer. But I did have a note from Minister Chu from Tourism and talked about what a great team we have here in Port Colborne and how well that meeting went. And then last Wednesday I was with Minister Calandria personally, and we had a great discussion on the meeting that you guys had, so it was phenomenal, as well as other things that we discussed. But that was the first thing that he brought up to me, was the meeting he had with you guys, so it was fantastic. However, the best meeting though, I'm sure, which you forgot to talk about here, but this is very important because this gentleman was in Port Colborne for probably the biggest announcement since Inco moved to Port Colborne, and I'll let you take it away from there, Councillor.
So the thing that I was most nervous about was a little meeting that we had at the Japanese embassy with His Excellency Kanji Yamanuchi. And to say that I was a little nervous walking into an embassy with an ambassador was, yeah, it was on a high level. He is one of the most engaging people you'll want to meet. He put everybody at ease, great conversations. And I guess we're not speaking out of class if we say we sat in the ambassador's office and listened to the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he pulled out his phone, and on his playlist, he's a guitar player and he likes old rock and roll. So he pulls out his phone, and on his playlist, he picks out the Doobie Brothers. So we're sitting there listening to that, and he's naming all of the people in the band, which really put everybody at ease. Conversation flowed from there. He was excited about the reception that AK got in Port Colborne, the ability to work with city staff, regional staff, provincial government, and the federal government all in one, and did say that the worldview coming out of Japan has changed, and Canada is one of the major trading partners that they are looking at. So it was interesting to hear his perspective on that and the reasons why. So don't be surprised if there is more businesses locating not only in Niagara, but in Canada as a whole, based on what the ambassador had said. So I forgot about that as soon as I said it.
I can't believe that.
I know.
It is phenomenal. He's a fantastic gentleman. We were able to meet him when we did the AK announcement, and you know, his office, his staff have been working with myself and Paul Ferris and CAO Louis with regards to attendance to companies within Japan while we're there, as well as working with the Consul General out of Toronto, which we've met with at his residence in Toronto. So amongst those two organizations within the Japanese ambassador and Consul General, getting us in touch with companies that are really looking at Canada, but specifically Niagara and Port Colborne, says a lot, because and I did receive a note to state that his visit with you guys was phenomenal, and Scott couldn't believe it, the Doobie Brothers that he played, and he knew everything. I'll tell you this, he played on his guitar at an event in Ottawa, O Canada, and there is a video out there of it, and I haven't seen it yet, but it's supposedly phenomenal. He is a phenomenal guitar player, so well, that's pretty cool stuff. So
We did say that we would set aside some time for next Canal Days if he wanted to come down and play.
Yeah.
And his response was, people don't want to listen to me play. He grabbed his head, so.
yeah, he's way better than he lets on, believe me. So, Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I've got three here. I'll make them quick. Through you to the Planning Department. You gave a great update on the 7,000 units of development that are in one stage or another coming to Port Colborne. I'm just wondering if, that's a couple months ago now, if you could provide council with an update of that as far as where those are progressing, if they're at the board, if they're ready to break ground, that kind of stuff. Appreciate that. Thank you. Second one to Steve. Steve, I was on that list of the notification for the Omer alarm system coming to our cell phones. I know that was canceled a couple times. I know I'm on that list and I didn't get one. So I don't know if they got the technology sorted out on that. Do you know?
Steve?
Yes, through your worship. We were through a couple trial phases just to make sure that test notifications were being delivered to recipients. What I'll do is I'll take that back and I'll look to make sure, and then we can send out a test notification or an actual email and text message to everyone just to let them know that the system's functioning appropriately.
Okay, great. Thank you. And finally to Mr. Bowles, I know I had a chat with you. This, it reminded me just actually, as it was mentioned here about the short-term rental bylaw. And I know there was some talk about including Shirkston, whether they're the tenants or customers there that rent, or whether they're those. But I know that they send out their rates. So now, so if there was going to be any adjustment where there's some kind of fee to them, I'm just wondering if you could have a conversation with them, because if we're not ready till the end of September, and they've already sent out their invoices, and would probably be just an added surprise to those customers there. So I don't know if there could be a touch base with them as to what might be up.
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor and council. Staff are working on the MAT tax. We'll have that back in front of council shortly. And I do believe the number of staff members, I'm included, have a meeting with Shirkston in about the next 2 weeks. So we'll make sure that we have an early conversation with them on that.
Great, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Councillor Hoyle and I are on the Environmental Advisory Committee, and with cooperation of the committee and Public Works and the staff there, the city's having a tree giveaway on September 14th. They're native trees, and we have, as of this morning, we have 20 trees left out of the 150. So 120 are not spoken for. And it's one tree per household, Mr. Mayor, and it's Environmental Advisory Committee's plan to expand the tree canopy within our municipality, and it also includes Ward 4, Councillor Wagner, so don't feel bad if you're not included. And also, we're selling rain barrels, but it's through the city, but it's through the manufacturer, the rain barrels. They're $40 plus tax, and limit 2 per household. You order online. If you go on the city's website, Mr. Mayor, there's a section there you can order everything, the trees and the rain barrel. The rain barrel automatically sends you to the manufacturer of the barrel. And they've sold 54 barrels so far. And that's going to be pick up at Vale Center on September 14th also. And you have to order before September 9th on the city's website in order to get the barrels. And the trees, as long as they last, Mr. Mayor, and then I'm sure they're going to be sold out really quick, especially after tonight. And the second item, I noticed on social media today that Clarence Street Bridge is going to be closed tomorrow again for maintenance. And reminding me that we have to probably communicate with the Seaway better signage for the closing of the bridge, like Clally Street East at Walland Avenue where Fontaine's is. The first time they closed it down this summer, they had no sign there. So if you turn left, go to the bridge, the sign was at Seaway Park. So you had to turn towards Nickel Beach in order to turn around. The second time they closed that bridge, they had a sign there, but it said closed on August 3rd to 5th. And it was the 13th. So they had the date wrong. So, of course, people are turning left again and getting to Seaway Park, and it's closed again. So you got to pull a U-turn or whatever. So I do know it's open, it's closed tomorrow, Steve, and if we could have somebody take a drive over there and help these people out and show them how to put a sign up or something, because you seem to screw it up every time the Seaway. And also, about a year and a half ago, I think it was Councillor Aquilina brought the attention to council about the raised bridge lights. One was burned out, and it's still burned out. I don't know if it's back ordered for a year and a half or we never contacted the Seaway, but can we try and get that fixed.
Mr. Shapowski.
Yes, what we'll do is we'll end up having some staff attend the site just to see how the layout of the sign is, and then we can advise the seaway in the appropriate manner, and we'll definitely look at the burnt out light on the sign.
Yeah, I think signage is important, Mr. Mayor, because it's nothing worse than seeing that, and you got to pull a U-turn, so that, you're driving your vehicle and you're getting pissed off, so then you got to go through downtown and stop for pedestrian things, and, you know, people get a little road rage, I guess, I don't know. Or go park at Food Basics park a lot, too close to somebody. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I'd like to state is to thank Public Works staff for hosting an open house for the Road End residents that happened last week. It was really well attended, and I think that taking the time to expand on the staff report and dive a little deeper into the reasoning behind a lot of the issues with parking, with the endangered species, and then with the gate closing, allowed an opportunity for the public to understand a little bit more. And there was the opportunity as well to get feedback from the public. And I'm going to ask Director Shapowski if the survey is still open, if people were not allowed, if they couldn't attend the open house, if they still have an opportunity to submit the survey question.
Mr. Shapowski.
Yes, through your worship. So we did ask for public feedback through comment sheets or through verbal updates at the open house. We did have a deadline of Friday, so we are still actively taking in any comments. If someone submits, we aren't going to refuse them. We'll still take that information and compile it. We just wanted to define somewhat of a deadline to be able to move on with making some decisions and investigating some of the causes that we can move forward with. So absolutely, if people still have comments, please don't hesitate to send them to that waterfront road allowances at portcolborne.ca email address.
Councillor?
Thank you. That's it.
Good, thanks. Okay, on to items requiring separate discussion. First up is item 8.1 is the Corporate Services Department investment policy update. I'm going to call on Councillor Bruno for questions.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Bowles. Mr. Bowles, great report. Glad you're consolidating those things. Two things. One is it talks about 80% of the 509,000 related to cemeteries is in a trust fund, and what you've done is amalgamate all these other small trust funds for Bethel, Churchton, and others that were out there. The report doesn't speak to, was there savings in that other 20%? It talks about what was in those accounts, but it doesn't talk really a lot about, were they all being annually audited? And so now with this report, you've brought that all under one trust account or two. And was there a savings there? Can you approximate it?
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, between fees, with investment fees and with respect to the audit, we're probably going to save about $4,000. But I think the bigger point is, well, it's not a huge sum of money. By redistributing the funds back to their core location, these groups can actually utilize those funds in real time. Because right now they're locked up and any investment income pays those fees. So nobody gets to access the funds. By moving forward with this, we'll be able to release these funds, and Shirkson will be able to make an investment, and Roselawn will be able to make an investment, and we'll be able to get real things done in the city.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I had on that.
Okay. Further questions on this one? Then if I can have Councillor Bruno and Bagu move the Corporate Services Department Report 2024-154 be received. that the investment policy in Appendix A of Corporate Services Report 2024-154 be approved, that staff initiate a process to close the identified trust funds in this report and disperse the related funds directly to the intended purposes or related community group subject to applicable regulation, legislation, and regulatory agencies. Comments? All in favor? That's carried. Item 8.2 is the user fee update and 2025 Sugarloaf Marina user fees, report 2024-157. I have Councillor Bruno up, or yes, Councillor Bruno up first here. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Bowles. I'm not going to speak to the Nickel Beach fees. I found that all in good standing and justification. Just on the marina, though, I think based on the last couple of years, I'm pleased with the fact that they've had quite a bit of a jolt each year to bring them up to market rates. So it's time to level that out. So I agree with that. I am concerned that on the analytics of all that, that perhaps there will be a better drill down as to, particularly on lever rate and keeping your seasonal fees in line. I guess it's my fault for not asking earlier on this because I've been all over the marina issue for the last few years. But I'm just wondering if also we could, well, first I want to ask you, when are these rates effective? Like, when do they go out to the customer?
Mr. Bowles.
Through the mayor to the councillor, and the manager of recreation can help me out if I'm wrong, but we will be communicating these immediately, and because we're going to go through the deposit process, and they'll become effective for next year's rates. But we start to communicate these once they're approved.
Thank you. Just like our tax bill, I'm wondering if it's an opportunity to, there you are. I was wondering if this is an opportunity, though, to do an information package out to them. I think you've done a survey, and I don't know if you want to share the results with the customers, but one of the things, there's been a demand for fish station out there, some other improvements, been raising the rates quite a bit, but I'm just wondering if it isn't time to start telling people what they're going to get for their money. In other words, kind of a newsletter communication piece on the future.
What?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bruno, yes, so we have had a survey that went out for the fish cleaning station, and we are looking at some upgrades in the communication to the marina community, and we will have that information and the addition of their fees and what upgrades they will start to see come through.
Right. I'm also concerned that I know there's talk about doing some dredging out there, and I wouldn't want to send an alarm bell out to boaters that they're on the hook for X million dollars or whatever it's going to cost. So I don't know if you can, it's always good to sort of usher in things. So if that's on their mind, I'm hoping you could address that in some kind of positive piece that doesn't send shockwaves through the customer base.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bruno, we also have the supervisor of the marina as well, online as well, and we'll make sure through the supervisor that that is positively communicated to the community.
Great, thank you. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baggett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, as long as we're in the marina, we'll talk about the marina. I think I already know the answer on the significant decrease in the boats, 816 to 24 foot, because we raised their rates up too much. I'm gathering.
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, I think there's a couple parts, and I think the team can jump in as well. We brought in some new rules in 2022 into 2023, and I think we did see a couple people necessarily potentially leave the marina as once we started enforcing some of the rules within the marina. And then the difference between 23 and 24, we have seen consistent fees of 12 to 15% over the last 4 years. So it has changed the dynamic of the cost of being at the marina. But the other thing is, and I think as Councillor Bruno noted, the dredging does need to occur. And I think for all the boaters, and we've been talking to the boaters one-on-one, we do have approval to start certain areas of dredging. The complexity is we still need approval on where we can move the material and where we can deposit it. So that's the last piece of the puzzle. Once we get that, we will start dredging, and it'll have a major impact with respect to the weeds. So those are the two issues, and that's where the recommendation here is for a much lower fee increase to go up much closer to the cost of capital inflation that we're experiencing. And we'll be back to council as soon as we have approval with respect to where we can move the dredge material.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you for that, because I know my old age pension, Canada pension did go up 10%. But even though I don't have a boat, I got a canoe also, so that doesn't count. Nickel Beach, $2 an hour fee without a participate pass. Who enforces this?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor and council. Ultimately, it would be approved through the bylaw process once we go through the final user fee approval with the budget. We would be enforcing it with our bylaw department going out there. The usage out there, I think many councillors would know as the winter time comes, it's very limited. But on the shoulder season at the end of April or end of October going into November, and then starting in depending on the weather, February right into April, you will see many individuals out there utilizing, and it's not uncommon for municipalities to have a small fee with respect to the usage. Again, and as the report points out, it would be the same status quo for a Port Colborne resident. You just leave your participate pass out there and you can continue to park. And in fact, you'd be able to park with your participate pass right up at the gate under this model going forward. So I don't know if that answers the question, but a bit of commentary on it.
Counselor?
Yeah, it does answer most of the question. What's the fine for parking there without a pass?
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it will be the same fine that we have, and I apologize, I don't know the dollar figure, I can look it up for you. I'll bring it back with when we do the final budget, but it would be the same fine that we have currently at the Nickel Beach.
Okay, I think of Mr. Director Bowles. I know most people use the beach are local people that go out early in the morning, and we know that because when we're fixing the fence there, all the phone calls we got about what we were doing on the beach, the city was doing on the beach. And so, yeah, I got no problem with out of the towners paying $2 an hour.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hoyle?
Through the mayor, Councilor Begg, you answered most of my questions. You brought them forward. My only thing was, for those months from Thanksgiving to Victoria Day, is it even worth the $2 and just not charge at all?
I guess through the mayor to the councillor and council, we put it forward. If council doesn't want to charge it, we don't have to charge it. The technology's out there because the sign's out there. So, and the sign right now says paid parking without your participate pass. So we can add a different sign and say it's free during these periods. I will say that one thing from a staff perspective that we thought about introducing it was it does begin to socialize the concept. We're working on a plan to come back to council. It may be coming back in the January-February period, but trying to map out an hourly rate for next year at the beach. Because what's often we hear about is you get off work maybe at 5 o'clock, you're not from Port Colborne and you want to come in. Do you want to pay the $20 or $30 for the last 2 hours of the day, or would an hourly rate in the last couple hours of the day work? So by introducing an hourly rate now, it does start to socialize the concept that we are moving to hourly rate options as a potential. So I just put it in front of council. We are working on some math to potentially bring that back. So that way, if individuals want to come at the end of the day, they could use it for next spring, summer.
Counselor?
Thank you for that clarification.
Counselor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Through, I guess, to Brian, just looking at the marina, and it says staff compare marina fees to other marina as well, analyzing metrics on occupancy patterns within the marina over the past several years. Where are we on budget, comparatively speaking, with what we budget for operating and what we budgeted for revenue? How close are we to meeting budget?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, we anticipate meeting budget even with the reduction, and we do that primarily because we did budget for a transfer to a capital reserve. Because we are down with some boaters, that transfer to the capital reserve might not be as high, but that will be the lever to still make sure that we don't put the cost of the marina on the taxpayer.
Okay, so when setting the rates for next year, is that factored in? Or are we just taking a look at what other marinas charge and we're kind of being in the middle of what everybody else is? Or are we actually just looking at what our actuals are, and are we, adjusting correspondingly to what we're doing? Because I mean, not everybody's the same, and we have to look after ourselves. And I'm going to say not worry about what everybody else is doing, because if we're trying to match Peter and Paul and we can't even sustain ourselves, there's no sense staying along with other people. We've got to, set a budget that's unique to Port Colborne, not the other ones.
So through the mayor to the councillor, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support on that. Ultimately, when we are making this recommendation with respect to looking at the average of where people are, we're trying to stay cost competitive. We still will deliver a balanced budget to council moving forward. You may see certain areas that we have to be a little tighter on, but we will make that balanced budget happen.
Okay.
Councillor?
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, further questions? Okay, I'll have Councilors Elliott and Hoyle move that Corporate Services Department Report 2024-157 be received, that the updated beach user fees attached as Appendix A be approved effective October 15th, 2024, and that the 2025 Sugarloaf Marina user fees attached as Appendix C be approved effective September 1st, 2024, to provide for early registration discounts. Any comments? All in favor? That's carried. So the next one, council, is item 8.3, recommendation report for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment for VL and 563 Clowley Street East. I'm going to put the recommendation on the floor right away because we do have the proponent here as a delegation. The Development and Government Relations Department Planning Division Report 2024-153 be received. That council approve the zoning bylaw amendment attached as Appendix A of Planning Division Report 2024-153. The council approved the draft plan of subdivision and associated conditions attached as Appendix B of Planning Division Report 2024-153 and set a lapsing date of August 27th of 2027. If I could have Councilors Aquilina and Bagu move that. We do have a delegation that wants to come forward. And we have, just bear with me, I have to find my list here. Where's your names there, Madam Clerk? Thought you had given those to me. Oh, there we are, sorry. So our delegation under this item is Kimberly Harrison McMillan on behalf of Design Plan Services, Inc., which is the applicant. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Steele, Council, and members of the public. My name is Kimberly Harrison McMillan, as was mentioned, of Design Plan Services. And I'm here on behalf of SG Real Estate Developments, IIILP, who is the registered owner of the property. I'm also joined by my colleague, Roshan Tharu, who's also been involved with the application throughout the process. So the proposal is for the draft plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw amendment for the subject property, municipally known as 563 Clowley Street, and the vacant parcel as shown on the screen. And I'm not sure if it's actually showing the presentation. Not yet. Okay. Great, thank you. And I guess can I just use these arrows? No? Okay. Next slide. Thank you. The subject property is located south of Killaley Street, east of James Street, at the terminus of Christmas, Bell, and Johnson Street, north of the Friendship Trail as shown on the screen. The proposed development will be the extension of the existing neighborhood from the west and will provide a connection to the Friendship Trail. Next slide. This slide shows the schedules from the official plan. It shows their designations for the site. This has been described during the public meeting, so I will not go through this in detail, as it's also outlined in the recommendation report. The only thing I wanted to highlight here is that the site was always contemplated for residential development in the official plan, and essentially these applications are implementing that vision. Next slide, please. This is to give everyone a visual, a visual of the draft plan of subdivision, which is referenced in the staff report. There have been some changes to this plan to address comments, which will be noted on the next slide. So this slide shows the latest concept plan, and so since the public meeting, there have been a few changes as a result of comments from the city and external agencies, such as the MPCA. One of those changes is in regards to the road configuration. So as requested by the city, we removed the cul-de-sacs that were previously proposed and allowed for future extensions of Johnston Street and Bell Street to the east. However, as an interim condition, those blocks will remain as landscape area. To do this, we also extended the private road in phase 1 of the proposed subdivision by rotating the townhouse blocks to address the street. It is important to note we intentionally did not connect this private road to access Killaley Street. That was done in conversation with planning staff to ensure that we were not providing a cut through the subdivision and to reduce traffic through that area. Also, another change to facilitate the road extensions for Bell and Johnston Street was the creation of a private road connection between Bell and Johnston Street in phase 4, which is essentially the middle of the plan. And that was to allow for the servicing design that was discussed with city engineering. Lastly, we have also increased the number of dwelling units from 286 to 290. This was essentially the result of the design changes that were made, and it created an opportunity for those additional units. Just to clarify, there is no change in terms of the unit types or building heights. Next slide. So this slide shows the different types of units proposed. So in particular, it's showing the stacked townhouse product as an example, which we understand could be a relatively new product type for council and the public. And so we wanted to highlight it here. It is a unit type that has been proposed and constructed elsewhere in Ontario successfully. It adds to the mix of unit types available. So the rendering on the slide provides a visual of that unit type for your reference. Next slide. This slide shows the proposed schedule of the draft zoning bylaw amendment, which is consistent with staff's recommendation report and proposes an R4 zone with site-specific exceptions. So one item to note is that the addendum before you is for the EP zone. That's no longer showing on this schedule, but it is being revised to address the correct location for the flood compensation zone, which is to the south of this area, as required by the MPCA. Next slide. So we wanted to list all of the things that we heard from the public meeting. We felt it was important to recognize those comments, not just from the public, but from council. And so, again, we looked at items such as archaeology, traffic, soil quality, noise, density, building height, servicing, maintenance, and on-street parking. We believe the proposed design addresses these concerns. For example, the area of archaeological concern will be a no-touch area clear of development, and that's the separate R4 zone that's shown there as a holding zone. And then there's also the soil quality, which has been tested, and where there was contamination, we've already remediated that area, and we're essentially packaging the results from that for the ministry. Also, since the public meeting last fall, we have been working with city staff to further address these items, as well as the items raised by councillors, as I mentioned, and agree with the response matrix provided by staff in the recommendation report. Next slide. So that essentially concludes my presentation. We just want an opportunity to highlight those changes and just acknowledge that we are in full support of staff's recommendation report. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to questions on my list here, any questions for the presenter? Councillor Bagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you very much. It's been a while since you've been here. We've had lots of developers here since then. And we always seem to ask the same questions. Has there been any changes to affordable housing in this subdivision?
In terms of
Is there affordable housing? And if there is, what is affordable housing by your definition?
So we are not proposing any affordable units as defined by CMHC. So that has not changed from the original proposal that was before council as part of the public meeting in October of last year.
Okay, so it's all affordable housing?
It's not affordable housing.
Okay. My next question, Mr. Mayor, through you. The acoustic barrier,
Yes.
how high is it going to be?
I believe that's defined in our report. I can confirm that height for you. It was a part of our submission that went in. And essentially, the way that the units have been designed that are adjacent to that buffer, it was to allow for a noise barrier for the industry to the south. But there is a road separating that, and essentially the idea being that those units are shorter. So the height of it is mitigated by how the units respond to it. In terms of the exact number, we can pull that up right now.
Yeah, I was just saying about the stacked townhouses. And how stacked are they and how stacked is the acoustic barrier?
So the stacked townhouse units are proposed sort of in the middle of the site. I can go back to the concept plan, whereas the noise barrier is further to the south. So there is another phase in between that area.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I'm okay with it. It's going to be whoever's going to move in there, whether they want to listen to the noise or not. So, okay, I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Further questions? Great. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
So the recommendation is on the floor. It's been duly moved and seconded. Questions to the recommendation? Any questions? Councillor Bagu on the list. Are you fine, or you still have further questions?
I have a question from planning staff, Mr. Mayor. I got an easy question for you, David. In the report, you talk about the planting of trees. Have we updated that since our canopy policy has been to make them their variable species of native trees?
Mr.
Or
Schultz?
just trees?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is something we can review at the detailed design stage. At this point, we just note that it's trees, but we will look at that further along in the process. So we can pick and choose what kind of species we have. And I'm not sure if council's aware, but we do have our engineering design guidelines that are coming forward shortly, and I think that will speak to the types of trees we're looking for in those types of plans as well. So that's definitely something we can look at and ensure that there's native species there.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I did see the list from the Public Works Department about the engineering report, and I think we're on the same basis, so I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to David. Just one question. The presenter said that staff was agreeable to change the road that was going out to Kalali. So now the exit and entrance to the whole subdivision is just on two roads. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the entrance onto Kalali is actually through a private condominium entrance. So the intention that we had with the reconfiguration of that was to ensure that traffic isn't cutting through that to get to the subdivision. So the main access points for a lot of the units will be from that Kalali entrance into the condo development there, with additional entrances from the municipal roads at the end of Bell and Johnston Street.
So the only people that can use the road off Kalali are the condominium owners?
Through you,
Schultz?
Mr. Mayor, not necessarily, but it was designed in a way to kind of, work on people's behavior and make it so they're not encouraged to take that entrance. But there wouldn't be any private gates or anything like that that would restrict cars from going through there.
Okay, I'm just wondering if that puts more traffic pressure on the two streets then. To up the units to 290, 300. Say most of the people use the two streets, you're looking at least 300. If every unit goes in and out once, that's 300 vehicles using the two streets, where you would think that the easiest access point would be Kalali to keep the traffic off the smaller streets and go through the subdivision. And that just, when the presenter said that, it was kind of, would it make more sense to put them on the main road than go through the subdivision?
Mr. Schultz?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that the challenge with that Kalali access is that it doesn't meet the city's width requirements for a public right-of-way. So we had to kind of explore other options for what that could be. So really, I think to answer your question, the roads connecting from Bell and Johnson Street are, designed to the municipal standard, full width, and can handle that additional traffic. And I think the consultant's traffic report also reviewed that and ensured that those roads have the proper capacity and that traffic can flow properly through those areas.
Counselor?
Okay, no, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Further questions? Counselor Danch?
Just one, Dave, I mean, you got, what I can see here, you got Bell Street and Johnson going through, but Christmas Street doesn't go through?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Christmas Street is where the archaeological area was discovered. So that area, they really can't develop that at this point until, if they go through future studies, there may be that opportunity to mitigate some of those archaeological resources. But at this time, it wasn't proposed to be brought through in order to preserve that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Okay, noting Councillor Hoyle's conflict on this one, all those in favor? And that is carried. What was Aquilina and Baggies? For the one we just did? Yeah. Oh, the next one? Oh, no, Aquilina Baggies. Okay, next is item 8.5. Subject is licensed childcare. It's the Corporate Services Department Report 2024-155. Who's taking this one? Yeah, Brian, this is yours. So, pardon? No, it's gone. It was pulled. It wasn't pulled. Councilor didn't want to pull that one. No. The one that we didn't bring forward. You didn't want to ask your question. Yeah. So on questions on this, I have Councilors Bruno, Bagu, and Hoyle. Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great report, great idea. I have a question and a comment. One is, it doesn't speak, unless I missed it, to the depth of shortage in Port Colborne for childcare spaces.
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, we have had conversations with the Niagara region, and they've indicated that we could be short up to 350 spots based on our current population and users. That's before the growth that the city is looking at moving forward. And that's why in the report, not only do we identify that I think the city's involvement with respect to doing something at the Health and Wellness Center is appropriate, but working with developers moving forward to see if we can build some additional childcare spots with developers, potentially ground floor, moving forward would be an appropriate direction for the city to give, council to give staff.
Counselor?
Thank you. Through you. Mr. Bowles, I keep reading about there's all these shortages, but that program for $10 a day doesn't allow private, like we have these three others in Port Colborne, to participate in that program. Is that correct? And is having the Y-in at our facility then allow these parents to get that $10 a day? I just really don't understand that dynamic.
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the council and council, first let me say I'm not a child care expert. So just on conversations that our manager of development and I have had with the region and other agencies, a number of agencies have prescribed and are in the government program. So it's not just a Y program, to be clear. The reason why in the report we would recommend moving forward with the YMCA and with the goal to achieving that, the $10 a day program, which just for clarity, as we understand, it's not actually $10 a day quite yet. It's more closer to $20 that it's moving towards, and then still with the goal to get there, but that's across the province. That's not just our location or just a Port Colborne, that's across the province. But the real reason why we look at the YMCA is the YMCA really is an extension of Port Colborne Recreation. They are a main operating factor within that building. We do share operational responsibilities, and we can point and have further conversations where other examples where organizations coupled some childcare programming with rec programming, and it helped both. It was a synergy to both, to grow both programs in a very functional manner, to be able to, not only from a financial perspective, but also from a growth perspective with the community and with those that are using the programs.
Thank you. I'm very supportive because I think these 7,000 units coming, and if we're already 334 short, and it'll take a while to build, and it'll take a while to go through all the hoops. But I would rather support anybody in Port Colborne who wants to do this, whether it was private, if it was available. But with the Y, I think we're supporting an organization that also, as you said, is a tenant in our building, and it draws more attention to that building. And if you go there in the morning when you see all the programming, I just think there's a lot of synergy, and I'm appreciative that we're getting out ahead of it as opposed to waiting for part or all of these 7,000 people to come, and that'll serve the people of today. So I'm very supportive of it, and glad it's the Y. They provide a lot of employment too in Port Colborne at the Field Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I had the same question as Councilor Bruno, how short we are in Port Colborne. I know mothers to be, actually, they're not even had their child yet. They're making reservations for childcare in Port Colborne because we are so short. And I don't care what the region says, I think it's a bigger number than that. We also service Wavefleet, part of Shirkston, Fort Erie, Ridgeway. The people that work in our city want to keep their kids close by, which, I think the region numbers are off. Because I know people that are having a really hard time finding childcare spots for their children, and I'm totally supportive of it. How many spots are we talking about, approximately? I know it's in the theory stage, but...
Yeah, through the mayor to the councilor and council, conversations with the YMCA and the region, initially we could be looking at 50 spots. We will look at, with council's approval on this port, we will look at options to build for 50 or up to 100 because we know that there's growth coming. And we will bring back the different cost estimates of each of this. So our goal, and just to be clear about how this would operate, is we would move forward to achieve or hire an architect, but do it in phases. The phase one would be the feasibility and the cost modeling of each of the different, and then council would make a decision, and then we'd move forward with council's opinion to be able to do a phase 2, which would actually be the full design, and then with council's approval on the full cost, we will then move forward with the phase 3, which is the building. But we will give you a design option for 50 and 100 unit daycare. And again, I think just staff point out that this daycare location will not solve all the daycare needs of the city of Port Colborne. So as we're looking at future developments and people are coming in, we are, from a development perspective and across the board, whether it be public works or finance, customer service, we are all taking an approach that we need to help grow this function in order to achieve the growth targets that I think we've set ourselves with respect to our strategic plan.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I really appreciate that last comment, Mr. Bowles, and I have a number of questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hoyle?
Through the mayor and council and to Mr. Bowles, I apologize. I didn't get a chance to tell the clerk that Mr. Bowles answered all my questions prior to me driving here from work, so I'm
Perfect.
good with all the answers.
Okay, thanks. Any further questions? Counselor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Brian. Is it incumbent upon municipalities to provide childcare spaces? Or who is the one tasked with that? Us?
Mr. Bowles?
So through the mayor to the council, I think it's a great question. We do have the ability within our mandate to be able to do this, even as far as development charges could be built out for childcare spaces in the future. The Niagara region does have some of its own childcare spaces, but has not had a growth target to build out more on their own. So it is something that, it is a philosophical question, like who does it? And we put it forward as staff that there's an enormous amount of growth coming to the city, and if we don't take an active role, we worry that void may get left unfilled, and then that will be at a disadvantage. And I think, I don't know if he meant to say it, or I'll take what Councillor Bruno said, that if we don't get out in front of it to try to help quarterback more of these and become a standard for others within the Port Colborne area, it will be very hard to catch up if growth continues to come, if we're already short 350. So I think it's one of those spots, just like with looking for physicians and doctors to come to the city of Port Colborne, and the city contributes and has a program to help recruit them. I think we are slowly having to move into this model to build out our ability to service our residents and meet the healthy community strategic goal that we've set for ourselves.
Okay, when you mentioned the 350 spaces were short, I don't see that in the report. And if you said that earlier, where that number comes from?
Yeah.
Is that waiting list?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councilor and council, that was waiting lists that the Niagara region gave the director of planning and myself in a recent meeting.
Okay, so if we go ahead and build something like this, like we're not even putting a dent in the waiting list, and if growth comes, then I think it will be a little bit slower than what we think. And I don't want to say this willy-nilly, but are we premature in going when we don't even know what growth will be like? So if we're going to build something with 50 to 100 spaces and we need 350, we're short 350 right now. And growth comes, and that number of 350, we build space for 50 or 100. You've got 250, 300 left over. Then growth comes, and now you're short 600. Then what do we do?
So jump in, so through the mayor to the councilor and council, I think that's where the recommendation puts forward that staff be directed to continue working with development that's coming in to build centers in these developments. Council's seen at least 2 developments that have been in front of you at different times with over 2,000 units. And it comes to us that when we're working with these developers, we're looking not just for this center, which can make sense and help us grow and do a lot at that center, maybe even in the long term, make it more affordable to run the center. But by having the mandate to work with these developers to push daycares into these locations, that's how we service or we deal with the upcoming growth, I think, that's going to come. So I think that mandate is equally as important as getting the mandate to look at the feasibility study at the Health and Wellness Center. And I just want to point out that the daycare itself, the way the funding model works, and the regions explained it to us in great length and working with the Y, is that we would ultimately only move forward with this subject to the lease within the current granting programs to help us pay for that daycare. So it's not like we'd be putting the cost of the daycare on the current taxpayer. The funding model would pay us back. We'd build it, we'd issue the debt for it, and then the funding model would pay us back the costs of running that center. So it's not a taxpayer cost either, just to be very clear to the taxpayer and anybody watching.
Okay, and just one last question. It says architect services be procured on a phased project basis with the first phase to assess the feasibility of Valley Health Wellness location and possibility of adding a second floor to expand the indoor recreation space. So I'm taking it, you're looking at a standalone building?
So through the mayor to the councillor, we have had initial conversations where you could build in different locations at the health center potentially, and it be attached, take advantage of certain infrastructure that's already there. And that's what we'd have to go through with the architect, with those locations, and have further conversations as that process goes through with council to where they would want to build. Ideally, it would be attached to the current facility, and that's how you get synergies with still having one front desk and not having to have other entranceways, other elevators, etc. But the second floor proposal to what staff is asking for is we do have the opportunity. Building the first floor is expensive. Building the second floor is a bit of has the potential to be, it's definitely less expensive once you build the foundation in that. And we don't want council to lose the opportunity to have additional recreational space, because when you look across the city, there's not necessarily that open floor space. We have 2 gyms, but if you look at how the camps are run, we shut down a whole gym all summer. So we actually go down to only one big gym that the city operates in the summer. So the idea of having the second floor could open up the ability to do more and continue to provide services to residents that we have to shut down during the summer to make other things happen.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you, Councillor. And I'll congratulate staff on this, as well as the Y and the region of Niagara for putting together. You've heard me say it in my mayor's report a number of times over my time here, is the fact that the more we work together, the more things we can achieve. And I know what you said, Councillor, by it's not going to put a dent, but if we can get 100 spaces in here, that's a huge dent in the childcare world for parents. When we're dealing with developers on a weekly basis through Gary's department, one of the things that we're asking is what kind of other services do you provide, whether it's medical services, childcare services, etc. And we've talked to a number of developers that are willing to come to Port Colborne at some point, and they're working with Gary's department right now that we're asking for those elements to be added to their development. So if we can get the ball rolling on our own property, and the YMCA, quite frankly, is one of the best partners we could have in Niagara. What they give us for what we pay compared to what we used to have with a single pool, and that was basically about it, because you had 2 rinks that shut down all summer long, and you didn't run any programming other. The amount of programming that we get, it's over 365 different programs that they operate, and the cost that we pay for it is not far off what the old 3 facilities cost us, and only 1 ran year round. So we are getting more bang for our buck, but they are a quality organization within Niagara. They are recognized by the region in their child care across the region. So, you know, they do run this, the region does run the one at Steele Street School and McKay School. I'm not sure if they're at Oakwood or not, but they do have a number of locations here, as well as the high school has their childcare there. So, yeah, the more we can put on the books for us and get ahead of the game before development comes here and more people are moving into Port Colborne, and the fact that we can work with our developers to create those facilities within their subdivisions or a condo building or an apartment building, whatever it may be, it'll just help in the future that we don't get behind the 8 ball like we are now, Councillor. So anyways, Brian, thank you and your staff for this. Any further questions or comments? So if I could have Councillors Bruno and Bagu move the Corporate Services Department Report 2024-155 be received. The Council directs staff to jointly apply with the YMCA of Niagara to the Niagara region for more licensed childcare spaces in Port Colborne, and that subject to Niagara region approval for more licensed childcare spaces, staff be directed to procure architectural services for a childcare center at the Valley Health and Wellness Center. Nothing further. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, item 8.6 is Fire Services Committee recommendation, and the recommendation, if I could have Councillors Bruno and Bagu move the Chief Administrative Officer, or sorry, not Councillors Bagu, Councillors Hoyle and Bagu move, I apologize, that Chief Administrative Officer Report 2024-162 be received, and that a shared Fire Services Management Oversight Committee be created and the terms of reference in Appendix A be approved. That Councillor Hoyle be appointed to the Shared Fire Services Oversight Committee as the council representative. That staff be directed to negotiate a shared services agreement for the delivery of fire administration and management services for a term agreeable to both parties. And that staff be directed to negotiate and execute employment contracts for the positions of Fire Chief, Deputy Fire Chief of Community Risk Reduction and Administration, and recruit a candidate for the position of Deputy Chief of Operations and Training, and that the annual review of the shared management team be conducted, and that the community risk assessment and master fire plan be undertaken by year 2 of this agreement. And we do have one delegation, and it's Mike Radzikowski. Mike, if you want to come forward.
Good evening. I'm sure none of you are surprised to see me here again tonight speaking on this topic. I'm not here to kind of, I guess, debate or argue with the decision. The way I see it, this decision was made back in March when it first came out. Why I'm here tonight to talk to you is to express our disappointment in the last 5 months. When this started, we thought that the full-time and volunteer association were going to have a bigger role in this and input. And unfortunately, I was lucky enough, and some of our members got to sit in because we requested, but the Volunteer Association had zero input. We were never asked to attend the meetings at all. So, I mean, we're a little disappointed in how that rolled out. Usually, you know, again, even with the public, when a developer comes, I see all these public meetings, hearings that come about that, you know, the public gets to come here and talk to council and kind of express their opinions and get a better understanding of what really is going to happen. Well, unfortunately, the public really didn't get that chance to voice their opinion, so we didn't really incorporate them, the ones that is affecting and the ones that are the taxpayers in the city. So, I mean, it really doesn't have a voice anywhere from any of us. When we look at how it went along, you know, I was reading through the management review plan that came back to council, and it says in there that it talks about how, you know, Wainfleet is a volunteer department, but they have full-time firefighters from other municipalities that are part of their department. And if there was an amalgamation, obviously it would have a negative impact on their fire service and municipality. And so we know that if we amalgamate, if they have to get out, or whatever the choice may be for them, that it's not good for them because of their full-time staff that are helping out there. I was very disappointed and couldn't believe when I heard this comment made from the Wainfleet CAO that Port Colborne does not need full-time firefighters. I just don't think that is very professional to say in a public setting in front of other people. We have full-time firefighters here that provide a service. We also have volunteer. We work together. In Wainfleet, they make it work because they have full-time firefighters from outside municipalities and volunteers. They make it work. I don't think that these types of things should be comments made to the public. My members came back to me and told me that they were told this and that the citizens sitting around them could not believe what was told. So, again, whatever I say doesn't change anything, but I think at the end of the day, in part of that report, it shows that Port Colborne is going to be the sole employer, and that there's a cost savings of about $46,000 to Port Colborne. For many years, we've had a fire chief and a deputy chief specifically to Port Colborne, and we're saying that to save $46,000, we're not going to have individuals that are dedicated to Port Colborne anymore. We're going to have 3 management positions that are going to be playing dual role in 2 municipalities. Where is the focus going to be? Again, I can't change it. You guys have already made up your mind. I'm just disappointed in the way it went. I'm glad to see that we're finally getting a fire master plan that's going to be completed, because that's something we haven't had done as long as I've been in the fire department for almost 20 years. So it's going to be good to see that. Another thing that I was very disappointed to hear was that, and I don't know if this is true or not, whether it is or not, but my members were also told by the same individual that because the municipalities pay for it, they can adjust and say whatever they want in these fire master plans. I really hope this isn't the case. And to be telling us this in a public setting as well does not sit right. If a fire master plan is made, those recommendations should be followed. So I hope that going forward, these things aren't adjusted to fit the needs of the municipalities just for whatever we want to see. So I was very disappointed over the whole course. We had a survey come out. The only input that us staff had to say was during a staff survey. And when that staff survey results came to the committee meeting, it was commented that the negative feedback from us was because of disgruntled workers and disgruntled employees, and that we're just mad because of a labor relation dispute. Well, just because we have maybe some disagreements doesn't mean that the minute we don't agree with something, it means we're disgruntled employees. Maybe we're employees that just care too much, and we don't want this. But we just brush it under the carpet, and we move on, and we don't even take those recommendations from what the staff want. We just say that we're disgruntled because of things that happen. You know, I don't think that the people that are involved here, we didn't get a voice. We really didn't. And from the day that won in March 19th, when this came forward, to today, nothing has changed. And nothing is going to change. So, unfortunately, we don't have a say in what happens in the future. We don't agree with the shared services, and I don't agree with it going forward. What I will tell you is we will come to work every day. We will be professionals. We will do our job. We will provide the best service to the citizens of this community, regardless of who's in charge. And when the day is done, we can say we've done what we had to do. So thank you for allowing me to say what I had to say. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions? Councilor Bruno.
It's not appropriate. It's not a question to Mike, but he brought up this, the future, which we all are concerned about. So I don't know if the chief or anybody, because I don't know the answer to that master plan issue that Mike mentioned, and how the input is. And I don't know if you know, Chief, if you can speak to that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, typically when a master fire plan is done, it's in the best interest that you hire a third-party consultant that would come in. They would look at the current community risk assessment, the gaps, and kind of identify the current levels of service plus the gaps that are addressed. They would take into long-term planning and growth. They would also interview staff, council. They would conduct the community surveys that Mike spoke about. They would conduct interviews with the firefighters, and that would kind of build out the 10-year plan that the fire service would follow. So those are the studies where that input is taken into the long-term planning for the fire department.
Councillor?
So they will have input on that. Everyone will have input on that? Or maybe everyone's the
My experience with master fire plans is that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Baggett. To the presenter.
Not the presenter,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, to staff.
Okay, good. Counselor Bodnar.
Yes, to Mike, just because you brought it up, you talk about the savings of some $43,000. I think I said from the beginning, and I think other councillors had said this wasn't about money. It was about getting a better fire service for the communities, and that's how I see this. So just to let you know, it wasn't about the money, at least from this seat anyways. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions? Thanks, Mike. Questions to staff, Counselor Baggio.
I got churned up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. It was mentioned that during the committee meetings, the volunteers had no input into the thing where the meetings where you and Councilor Hoyle attended and CEOs. Can you explain that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, all of the committee meetings were made public. The agendas were posted. Anybody could sit just as they are in the gallery now. We had actually opened up a spot in the agenda for comments from the gallery. They never attended.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So everybody had the opportunity to talk. If they didn't talk, that was up to them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Further questions? Counselor Elliott.
Just real quick, thank you, Mayor. Through to the chief. Had a conversation with another deputy chief from the region, and tell me if I'm wrong, but is the master fire plan supposed to be completed by 2025?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the community risk assessment was supposed to be completed in June of this year. Okay. But with obvious things happening, we were not able to get that completed. That should have been started 3-4 years ago.
Okay, maybe that, I thought, maybe I convoluted both. We were talking about it, so, okay. I thought that he had said that it was 2025 that had to be done by. Okay, thanks.
Good, thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, the recommendation has been duly moved and seconded. I apologize. Counselor Aquilina. Oh, sure, yeah.
I read through you, Mr. Mayor. I read through the staff report, and I have some concerns. The concerns I have are thinking of our future and all the development proposals that are coming to the city. We have AK that's, I think, within 5 years, they're supposed to be functioning and producing. And my fear is that if we go with the recommendation that in 8 years, we could terminate this agreement, that one municipality between Wainfleet and Port Colborne is going to be starting from scratch. And I think more than likely probably it would be Wainfleet, since the staff would be here under Port Colborne, the fire chief and the 2 deputy fire chiefs. So I have a lot of reservations about doing the shared services, only because I think that Port Colborne is only going to be expanding, and I don't think that we have a current complement of volunteers that's very healthy right now in Port Colborne. And my fear as to what Mike was saying about the Wainfleet volunteers might diminish as well, and I find that that's going to be hard to build those 2 communities and staff up. So I have a lot of reservations about this agreement, and I don't think that I could support it.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so we have minutes of boards and committees. We have one for the grant allocation committee, again noting Councillor Hoyle's conflict. Okay, so Councillor Hoyle declared conflict on this item. He did recuse himself from any discussion, debate, decision, and vote regarding the application from the WAVE. I just want to make that point. I do serve in that board, and I was there when that was done. So if I could have Councillors Bodner and Danch move, resolve that the grant allocation committee meeting minutes dated July 29, 2024 be received. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. So recommendations arising from boards and committees, we have the grant allocation committee from their July 29th, 2024 meeting. If I can have Councillors Elliott and Aquilina move, resolve that council approve the following recommendation from the grant allocation committee, that funding and request be approved for a total of $24,100 for the second and final allocation of 2024 as follows. Big Brothers Big Sisters $4,000, Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet $3,000, Habitat for Humanity $2,500, Port Cares Reach Out Center $5,000, Port Colborne and District Conservation Club $2,600, Port Colborne Operatic Society $2,000, Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56 $3,000, Wave Girls Hockey Association $2,000. Questions on those? All in favor? That's carried. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did I miss it, or didn't we used to get what each of those were going to use their money for? That's not in there, right? It says amount, but it doesn't say.
Oh, what it's exactly for?
Yeah.
Let me look at the.
Unless I'm not bringing it up right.
Not sure if the minutes are that detailed. Just bear with me. I don't think they are.
I got
no,
the minutes,
but the secretary for the committee, Gail Todd, if you have a question on that, you can call her. It is outlined. It's a pretty big, thick.
Sure.
But yeah.
Sorry, I wouldn't need all the gory details. I just want to know, because I remember getting it before, or they, at some point in the past, where it said they would use it for, you know, a specific thing.
Yeah, which
I don't need to know that the committee does all the grunt work, figuring out whether they should get it.
We can have.
Just like to know what it is.
Yeah, we can have Gail send that out to everybody, just a condensed version.
Yeah.
Because some of these groups have asked for, you know, let's say a group received 3,000, they may have asked for 10,000.
Yes.
To go towards a large project, but we've only funded a portion of it. So.
Sure. Yeah.
But we can. I'll have her send that out to you guys.
Good. Thanks.
Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. I know it doesn't help the passing of the grants, but when we do a presentation, there is a little blurb as to what each of the recipients are using the money towards.
Yeah. We'll have her submit that to you. Yeah, this has to be done first. Then we hand out the checks in September. Yeah, no. You got to do this first. You got to prove it.
Yeah.
Then we can have. Then we're going to have Brian issue the checks, and then we'll have them here, and Councillor Hoyle and myself, Councillor Aquilina, as well as Chair and Vice Chair can be there. Yeah. Yeah. No. This is the way it's done. Okay. Anyways, any more questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, on to bylaws. We have bylaws 20.1.
The confirmatory bylaw, or that we leave the bylaw package till after we come back in closed session.
Oh, so you just want to do 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have motions, and notice of motion.
Oh, I apologize. Where is that?
Section.
Oh, sorry, it was further up. Yes, under notices of motion, there are no motions, Council. under notices of motion, we have Councillor Danch. Councillor Danch?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to bring forward a notice of motion to direct staff to inform council whether regulating outdoor lighting in residential areas is possible.
Okay, thank you. There are no questions or votes on that, council. So, on to bylaws. We have bylaws 20.1 and 20.2. If I could have councillors Bruno and Bagu move those. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. We are going back into in-camera council, so we will come back for the confirmatory bylaws in open session. Okay. For all those at home, we will not be coming back to our WeeStream on YouTube. So thank you for watching, and stay safe and have a fun and happy long weekend.